Okay, fine. It's not Airslaint. But I feel like I deserve partial credit, and now I'm going to tell you why, as we jump into what we've learned at the North American 2026 FanFest. First of all, we're not going to be talking about systems or gameplay here. As cool as the new modes look, I am a vibes-based creature, and whatever an evolved mode Dragoon is, it's not what I'm about. No, we're here to talk about setting and story, so let's get into it. Evercold. Kind of a silly name, but hey, a name is just a name, and the content behind that name looks very, very cool. With one of the most visually striking and unique cinematics we've maybe ever had, the expansion is slated to take us back into interplanar travel, this time to the Fourth, which appears to have been devastated by an all-encompassing deep freeze. We know that the Sixth Reflection was lost to a calamity of ice during the Fifth Umbral Calamity, so it may seem strange that another planet is being threatened by a global ice age, until we remember that we just learned the Ninth has nearly been entirely lost to a calamity of lightning, a fate that the 12th Reflection shared way back during the Second Umbral Calamity. So it's clear the elements can double up. The cutscene is told from the perspective of an old woman recounting the tale of her planet to a young girl, and one thing becomes immediately apparent, and it serves as the basis for my claim that I deserve partial credit for my Airslaint theory. The Fourth is very deeply Norse-coded. The tapestry depicts a great tree that could very easily be Yggdrasil. There are massive titans that could well be the Jotun. The eternal frost that covers the planet could easily be compared to Fimbulwinter. The inspiration is obvious, and only becomes more so when we look at the screenshots and the art rolled out later in the keynote. The gables on multi-tiered homes with angular, sloping roofs is incredibly reminiscent of Old Norse architecture. And then you have this wolf who appears later in the keynote, and wolves show up all the time in Norse mythology. Most notable amongst them is Fenrir. But if we allow for the fact that Fenrir has appeared in Final Fantasy XIV once already, there's still the likes of Skoll and Hati, who chase the sun and moon across the skies. And then there's this bad boy. I predict that this giant dragon, as Yoshi P called it, is none other than Jormungandr. Now yes, technically Jormungandr and Midgardstormir are the same entity in Norse mythology, and we already have a Midgardstormir. But this isn't Earth, and it's not Norse mythology, so not everything has to be one-to-one, and these two different names can serve two different entities. Should this be the case, this Jormungandr entity is clearly extremely important to the denizens of the Fourth, as serpentine imagery shows up everywhere in their villages and cities. If you're unaware, Jormungandr is the world serpent of Norse mythology, who encircles the planet and is the key figure in Ragnarok. Finally, the other major recurring symbol is the tree motif, with roots and branches appearing everywhere. This is certainly Yggdrasil, the great world tree that connects the realms. Considering we have a landmark that is known to connect to the realms already that happens to be made entirely out of crystal, I believe the structure shown here is our Yggdrasil. A great tree made of crystal, and perhaps the gateway to the Fourth that our interdimensional key will open. Now, as your humble true believer in Airslaint and friends to Rogadin everywhere, all of this does leave me wondering. If we are delving so deeply and thoroughly into Norse mythology now, does this mean we will ever go to the Rogadin homeland? After all, double dipping into an aesthetic theme does run the risk of making things grow a little stale. Which is why I have to throw out there the very slim possibility that we could still be going to Airslaint this expansion. Do I think this is likely? Absolutely not. Is this fully cope from a guy who made a whole video on the idea? Absolutely yes. It's not uncommon for us to visit two locations in one expansion, but I think the vast scope of a new reflection probably counts out any possibility of a secondary location. However, I will hold the barest smidge of space for the possibility that Airslaint might feature as a departure point, an opening zone, for our journey deeper into the realms beyond. Because I worry if we don't, we may never see the homelands of the Rogadin at all, but we'll certainly know more at FanFest Berlin and FanFest Japan. Now, if we circle back to the cinematic, there are a few questions that it raises that I'm eager to see answered. Primarily is the phrasing the old woman uses in her story. Everything changed when they arrived. In those days, we knew them as the Far Wanderer. The framing of the cinematic makes it pretty obvious that it's us she's talking about, but that leaves the timeline confused for me. Is the story being told in a future, then? Is this a future that we arrived to prevent? Does that mean that perhaps is why none of the pictures we saw show a frozen over hellscape? And that was why that was something Yoshi P pointed out repeatedly? Do we perhaps arrive at the onset of this great calamity and help to prevent Fimbulwinter from falling? These are questions that only time will answer, but I do have one more. That's Y'shtola, right? The tail, the purple magic, the kind of overall Matoya vibes. This is old Y'shtola. What the fuck is going on? There's one other thing I've noticed, and maybe it's nothing, but maybe it's something, but either way, I think talking about it is maybe gonna piss a lot of people off, so I'm just gonna rip off the band-aid. While this trailer does a great job not being too derivative of a mainline Final Fantasy like others have been, I can't help but notice some Final Fantasy XIII. I know, stop booing, stop, don't close the damn tab, come back, look. Final Fantasy XIII is a very unpopular installment in the series, I get it. But the cool thing about Final Fantasy XIV is that it is its own game. It can take elements from the other games and use them to tell a completely unique, interesting story. These motifs and themes are not inherently cursed or poisoned just because they're attached to a game you don't like. They can be repurposed into a new and interesting story. Besides, I might just be seeing shapes in the cloud, I'll let you be the judge. First of all, there is the central conceit of the Fourth, a people who have taken to a land in the sky to escape from a savage and unforgiving surface roamed by giants. This mirrors the dynamic between Cocoon and Grand Pulse quite nicely. Now, in the latter pairing, there is no small amount of anti-Pulse propaganda at play, but that could even be a plot point that we'll address and discuss in Cold Trail, the Cold Walker. Oh, Evercold. The other bit I found interesting was the unnamed enemy that showed up alongside the Sword Dog. I thought the green swirls felt kind of familiar, and while looking up some different airship models, I stumbled across this location from, you guessed it, the Final Fantasy XIII series. It is the realm of Etro, the goddess of the Final Fantasy XIII series. She's said to be the goddess of death that keeps the great cycle of life turning. There isn't really a fully formulated thought here beyond pointing out a visual similarity, so if you think I'm grasping at straws, well, you might be right. But it is worth pointing out that this afterlife realm is called Valhalla. Finally, we have to talk about the jobs. We are indeed getting a new tank and a new physical range job, which I predicted. It didn't really take someone being blessed with Apollo's gift of prophecy to nail that one down. Yoshi P blessed us with a shirt as usual, this time showing off Riditin Sas Arvina, better known as that guy whose ass he used to whip in 30 seconds or less for the easiest roulette clear of the day. Probably the easiest read on this shirt is Riditin's weapons. He wields dual punching gun shields, which could serve very easily as a new tank job. As for what the job could be called, your guess is as good as mine, because Yoshi P said both new jobs are Final Fantasy XIV originals. Gun Puncher, Shield Boy, I don't know, give me your best in the comments. If we look a little deeper, we could also find an argument that the t-shirt is hinting at not necessarily a dual shield job, but a Garlean job, like a Magitech Knight or something similar, as Riditin was one of the Empire's bravest boys. To cover all of my bases, it may even be possible that the shirt isn't hinting at the tank at all, but instead the ranged physical job, either as some sort of crazy Captain America shield thrower or a Magitech artillery gunner, although that last one is basically Mechanist, and the last thing Mechanist needs is Mechanist but better. The final thought I'll put out there on the matter is that Riditin is a Rogadin, so maybe the signs are pointing to a Rogadin-based job, and in order for us to go do that, we would have to go somewhere where Rogadins are, like, maybe, I don't know, Okay, I'll stop coping. We're not going to Airslane, probably, but we are going to the Fourth, and I'm looking forward to seeing how we get there in 7.5. Be sure to let me know in the comments how you're feeling, what you think about Cold Trail. I'm gonna get this eventually. Evercold, let me know your theories, your job ideas, any details I might have missed. Just making fun of me for guessing the expansion wrong, whatever feels right to you. No matter what, thank you so much for listening, and we'll catch you in the next one.